ब्रह्मानन्दं परमसुखदं केवलं ज्ञानमुक्तिं द्वन्द्वातीतं गगनसदृशं तत्त्वमाला एकं क्षम्यतां ब्रह्मराजी.
Please go ahead, Bella.
एकं नित्यं केवलमचलं साक्षिभूतं भावातीतं त्रिगुणसहितं सद्गुरुं तं नमामि. नित्यं शुद्धं निराभासं निराकारं निरञ्जनं सूत्रभाष्य वन्दे भगवन्तं पुनः पुनः. ॐ सहना भवतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यं करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै. ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः. नारायणं नमस्कृत्य नरं चैव नरोत्तमं देवीं सरस्वतीं व्यासं ततो जयमुदीरये. ॐ श्री परमात्मने नमः. अथ नवमोऽध्यायः. राजविद्या राजगुह्ययोगः. श्रीभगवानुवाच इदं तु ते गुह्यतमं प्रवक्ष्याम्यनसूयवे ज्ञानं विज्ञानसहितं यज्ञात्वा मोक्ष्यसे शुभात्. राजविद्या राजगुह्यं पवित्रमिदमुत्तमं प्रत्यक्षावगमं धर्म्यं सुसुखं तुमव्ययम्. अश्रद्धधाना पुरुषा धर्मस्य परन्तप अप्राप्य मां निवर्तन्ते मृत्संसारवर्त्मनि. मया ततमिदं सर्वं जगदव्यक्तमूर्तिना मत्स्थानि सर्वभूतानि न चाहं तेष्वस्थितः न च मत्स्थानि भूतानि परमे योगमैश्वरम्. भूतं न च भूतस्थः मात्मा भूतभावनः यथाकाशस्थितो नित्यं वायुः सर्वत्र गोमः तथा सर्वाणि भूतानि मत्स्थानि उपधारय. सर्वभूतानि कौन्तेय प्रकृतिं यान्ति मामिकाम् उपक्षये पुनस्तानि कल्पादौ विजयहम्. प्रकृतिं स्वामवष्टभ्य विसृजामि पुनः पुनः भूतग्राममिमं कृत्स्नम् अवशं प्रकृतेर्वशात्. न च मां तानि कर्माणि निबध्नन्ति धनञ्जय. उदासीनवदासीनम् असक्तं तेषु कर्मसु मयाध्यक्षेण प्रकृतिः सूयते सचराचरम् हेतुनानेन कौन्तेय जगद्विपरिवर्तते अवजानन्ति मां मूढा मानुषीं तनुमाश्रितम् परं भावमजानन्तः मम भूतमहेश्वरम् मोघाशामोघकर्माणो मोघज्ञानाविचेतसः राक्षसीमासुरीं चैव प्रकृतिं मोहिनीं श्रिताः महात्मानस्तु मां पार्थ दैवीं प्रकृतिमाश्रिताः भजन्त्यनन्यमनसो भजन्त्यनन्यमनसो ज्ञात्वा भूतादिमव्ययम् सततं कीर्तयन्तो मां यतन्तश्च दृढव्रताः नमस्यन्तश्च मां भक्त्या नित्ययुक्ता उपासते ज्ञानयज्ञेन चाप्यन्ये यजन्तो मामुपासते एकत्वेन पृथक्त्वेन बहुधा विश्वतो मुखम् क्षम्यताम् if my pronunciation or my chanting was wrong. Kripya kshamyatam. So we have to repeat the verse 8. Prakritim swamavastabhya visrujami punah punah bhutagramamimam kruts avasham prakritirvashat. Swam prakritim, my own prakriti. There is too much breaking of my voice. Please let me know if there is too much breaking of my voice, and I can continue sharing. Someone can help reading. Swam prakritim, my own prakriti. Avashtabhya, controlling. Punah punah, again and again. Imam krutsnam bhutagramam, this entire group of beings. Avasham, necessarily. Prakritehe, vashat, by force of prakriti. Visrujami, I create. Keeping my own prakriti under control, again and again, I create this entire group of beings necessarily by the force of prakriti. Keeping my own prakriti under control, again and again, I create this entire group of beings necessarily by the force of prakriti. Visrajami punah punah. Again and again, I create. After the dissolution, at the end of each kalpa, I again create myself. Does that mean I undergo a change? No. Prakritim swam avashtabhya. Keeping my own prakriti, my own maya upadhi in my hands, I create. This is the difference between the Jiva and Ishvara. Ishvara keeps Maya under his control. The Jiva comes under the spell of Maya or Avidya until he is released from it. Therefore, the Lord says, keeping this Maya in my hands, I create again and again. Swam prakritim avashtabhya visrujami punah punah. What does he create? Bhutagramam imam kritsnam. This entire group of bhutas, meaning the whole Jagat. What is seen by you in its entirety, I create. Aham visrujami. One may ask, why do you do that? all my problems are only because I find myself in this creation. So why did you create this? Why did God create the world? Avasham means it is something that has place. That is, without any will on the part of Ishvara, this takes place. This question, why did God create the world, has been asked millions of times. Any answer is only imaginary. The stock answer is that it is all Bhagwan's Leela. It is all a sport for the. But why does Bhagwan need a sport Leela? Is he restless or bored or lonely? If he is, then how is he? Then he is as much samsari as me, the jiva. The Lord answers this question by saying that he did not create anything at all. Only when he has created does he have to answer this question. In the next line, he is going to say that he did not create anything. Assuming that there is a creation, we can only say that it came about without any will on his part. How then did it come? Prakruteha vashat. Because of the force of Prakriti alone, the creation takes place. The nature of Prakriti is to create. Not only the Lord, but you can also say the same thing. Why do you think about a given thing at a particular time? It is by the force of the same Prakriti. If you say, I think, you have a problem. When you say Prakriti thinks, you have no problem. What is applicable right now here for you is also applicable to Bhagwan, because Atma is common and the Srishti is typical. A given thought is born in your head. That is, after all, a Srishti, even though you do not will to create a given thought. There is, of course, deliberate thinking, but what we are talking about here is a thought that just occurs in your head without your willing. Why did this particular thought occur? Why is it created? It takes place naturally. Prakruteha vashat. Your will is not involved. Then how can you assume responsibility for it? It is your thought, no doubt, but you have nothing to do with it because you have no will regarding it. This is true for a jnani or an ajnani. Both have nothing to do with the thought that occurs without any willing. So let it occur, and though there may be some cause, we are not concerned with that. It is Prakruteha Vashat. Please let me know if much of breaking of voice. And Agnani, another type of thought which is born of his own will. When he wills a give out, he will of course claim authorship for it. Because he has ahankara, he thinks he is creating the thought. The jnani will also have this type of thought, but he looks upon this so-called will as part of prakriti. In conclusion, even while thinking, he does not think, seeing, hearing, touching, smelling, eating, walking, etc. I perform no action at all. Pashyan, Shrinvan, Sparshan, Chigran, Ashnan, Gachan, Naiva Kinchit Karomi. Chapter 5, Shloka 8 and 9. Niva Kinchit Karomiti Yukto मन्येत तत्त्वम् पश्यन् शृण्वन् स्पृशन् जिघ्रन् अश्नन् गच्छन् स्वपश्वन् शपश्वसन् प्रलपन् विसृजन् गृह्णन् उन्मिषन् निमिषन्नपि इन्द्रियाणीन्द्रियार्थेषु वर्तन्त इति धारयन्. This is the difference between the Ajnani and Gnani. Both have the experience of finding themselves with an unsolicited thought. Prakriteha vashat. The Ajnani thinks that he created the thought because he thinks he is a karta. Then the confusion is further compounded. He assumes responsibility for the very thought that occurs without his will and feels guilty about it. Then, through therapy, etc., he tries to develop some kind of a distance, but he still has ahankara. Therefore, the problem is going to recur in one form or another. But there is also deliberate thinking on his part for which he will certainly claim authorship because he has the notion, I am an author. Ajnani, however, has eliminated the notion that he is the author of any action by seeing that Atma is a karta. If Atma is a karta, then because of the force of Prakriti alone, thoughts happen. There is no willing or wishing or any kind of action. All these just take place, and it is as though I do something and as though I do not do anything. It is as though things take place of their own accord, prakruteha vashat. Krishna says the same thing. This creation just takes place. This is the answer to the question, why the creation? The karmas of all the jivas form the prakriti. When pralaya comes to an end, those karmas have to find their expression, and the manifest creation begins at the beginning of the kalpa, kalpadau, kalpadau, Kshamyatam, kalpadau. Bhagavan brings the creation into being, keeping the prakriti under his control. Prakrutim swam avashtabhya. It means that he does not come under the spell of Prakriti, but this I is Sat Chit Ananda Atma, which does not will anything to happen. Then who wills? In the presence of Bhagavan, with reference to Prakriti, there is a will. Please, I repeat this last sentence again, very important. In the presence of Bhagavan, with reference to Prakriti, there is a will. It is said in the Taittiriya Upanishad, So kamayata bahushyam prajayeti sat bhotavyata satapasat tattva. Please forgive me if my pronunciation is wrong or correct.
Satapotapyata satapastaptva.
Satapotattvata.
Satapotapyata. Tapyata is he's done tapas on that. Satapotapya. He's asking, the father is asking the son to go and meditate on this. Satapotapyata satapastaptva. And then after he's meditated, he comes back and he shares his findings with his father.
Okay, so Satapotattvata it is?
No, satapotapyata. Tapyata.
Tapyata. Astu.
Tapyata. He went and meditated. That is what it's. Satapo tapyata satapas taptva.
Satapostapyata satapastatva. धन्यवाद. सो कामयत बहुश्याम प्रजायेति सतपोतप्यत satapasthatva. He desired, may I become many. Now one can ask, why should he desire? Then we have to say that the desiring is also from the point of view of the Prakriti alone. Prakriteha vashat. From the standpoint of Prakriti, Atma seemingly desires. That is why Bhagavan says, keeping Prakriti under my control, Prakritim Swam Avashtabhya. Without his willing, purely due to Prakriti, this creation takes place. And it is a creation of great variety because the jivas have to undergo many different kinds of experiences according to the karmas they have earned. Because of that, there are varieties of bodies with their own unique Sukshma Sharira, all created according to the karma of jivas. I repeat, as there was too much of breaking of voice, and it is a creation of great variety because
I can read the bell if you have.
if there is, because there is continuous notification. Yeah, dhanyavad. I can continue sharing, Dr. Mara. Please go ahead from this paragraph.
And it's a creation.
Yeah. And before that also, if there was too much of breaking of voice, kindly repeat as you wish. I don't know the breaking of voice because there is a notification.
Okay, so can you hear me? Can you?
Yeah, very clear.
All right. Excuse me. Krishna says the same thing. This creation just takes place. This is the answer to the question, why the creation? The karmas of all the jivas from the Prakriti. When pralaya comes to an end, those karmas have to find their expression, and the manifest creation begins at the beginning of the kalpa, kalpada. Bhagavan brings the creation into being, keeping the Prakriti under his control. Prakritim swam avastabhya. It means that he does not come under the spell of Prakriti. But this I is Sachit Ananda Atma, which does not will anything to happen. Then who wills? In the presence of Bhagavan, with reference to Prakriti, there is a will. It is said in the Taittiriya Upanishad, so Kamayata Bahushyam Prajayeti. He desired, may I become many. Now one can ask, why should he desire? Then we have to say that the desiring is also from the point of view of the Prakriti alone. Prakriti Vasat. From the standpoint of Prakriti, Atma seemingly desires. That is why Bhagavan says, keeping Prakriti under my control. Prakritim swam avastabhya. Without his willing, purely due to Prakriti, this creation takes place. And it is a creation of great variety because the jivas have to undergo many different kinds of experiences according to the karmas they have earned. Because of that, there are varieties of bodies with their own unique sukshma sarira, all created according to the karma of jivas. Now there arises another question here. When according to their punya papa karmas, they are given bodies and situations, etc., how is Bhagavan doing anything? When a king gives money, protection, punishment, etc., according to the services and attitudes of his citizens, he seemed to be the one meting out punishment and reward. The same philosophy extends to Bhagavan. If you do the right thing, you are rewarded. If you do not do the right thing, you are punished. Even a dog is trained like that. If a person is well behaved, he is a beneficiary, and if not, he is adversely affected. By doing what is proper, one is born in a good family, has a good body, and everything goes well for him. Another person is born in a situation full of disadvantages. Each person is affected by his own dharma and adharma, which are subject to his choice. Whenever there is a choice, there is definitely kartrutva, doership. Bhagavan has no such problem because everything that is happening is due to Prakriti. He does not really participate in anything. When he says, I do not create anything at all, the word I refers to Satchit Ananda Atma, and that is only Atma there is. When he says, I repeat that, when he says, I do not create anything at all, the word I refers to Satchit Ananda Atma, and that is the only Atma there is. In the presence of this Atma, Prakriti takes care of everything. There is one more point to be understood here, and that is without this presence of Satchit Ananda Atma, the Prakriti cannot do anything. I'll repeat this again. There is one more point to be understood here, and that is without this presence of Satchit Ananda Atma, the Prakriti cannot do anything. If we say so, then we will be saying that Sankhya is profound. That is, Prakriti does everything and Atma remains unconnected. But that is not acceptable. Prakriti and Paramatma are not two parallel realities. Prakriti is not independent of Paramatma. It is superimposed upon Paramatma, entirely depending upon Paramatma for its existence. Prakriti itself cannot create. Atma also cannot create by itself. They somehow come together to bring about this creation. But they are not two different entities enjoying the same degree of reality. One is Satya, the other is Mithya. So there continues to be only one. If this is not understood, we will end up with duality. That is why Lord Krishna can say, I created everything, I did not create anything. If it is not understood, it sounds like a contradiction. Shall I go further? There's one more paragraph. Let me finish this. In this creation, there is a great deal of pain. Bhagavan seems to be responsible for all this. He created man with a wonderful body, senses, and mind, And at the same time, he created some mosquitoes, etc., to torment him. The human being has to fight against unknown sources of pain throughout his life. The one who created this pain must necessarily be affected by all this. Bhagavan says, no, whatever the creation is, it is all due to the force of Prakriti. Prakriti vasat. Prakriteha vasat. Teha vasat. And I am not involved in it. These karmas do not affect me at all. You know, when I was reading, there's one line. Okay. Yeah. Without his willing, purely due to Prakriti, this creation takes place. So, can you explain that, Pramara? Because I didn't get that part. What without his willing, purely due to Prakriti, this creation takes place. But then again, here they are not two different entities. They superimposed on one on the other.
Yeah, this is, if we go back to our Tattva Bodh, we learned that Brahma Ashraya Maya, and from Maya you have all the Sattva Rajas Tamo Gunatmika Maya is born, and from there you have the Panchamahabhutas, Akasha, Vayu, Agni, Jala, and Prithvi, and from then the Panchikarna happens, and all the whole Srishti happens, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
So Brahma or Atma is the stable entity that does not create. It is this his power of Maya, which again is dependent upon him, from where the whole creation happens. So that willing or the desire to create is part of Maya. It is not coming out from Atma. So the so kamayata that Taittiriya Upanishad is saying is more attributed to the Prakriti aspect. So that is the intriguing part. That is the whole thing about our journey here, is to more than understand Maya, cross over Maya.
Right.
I mean, right? So that is the whole exercise of a sadhak. That is why we keep saying, this, even in the first shloka of Rajavidya Rajaguhyam, Ashubhat, Ashubha is the samsara, this whole thing which is Maya Janitam. So crossing over this, he says, I'm going to give you that knowledge, Rajavidya Rajaguhyam, Pavitram idam uttamam, Pratyakshaavagamam dharmyam susukam kartumavyayam. Where was that Ashubhat? Yeah, so he says, this knowledge will help you cross over this.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that is the whole purpose of knowledge. So how is this Prakriti creating, and what is this Prakriti? That is a wonder. Isn't it?
Right. So the way it is explained, the
analogy, just for our small mind's understanding, we can say that how in the presence of sun and moon, these seeds, when you put it in the fertile land, how they sprout and grow. Without the sun, there will not be any growth on this earth. But sun is not directly responsible, though in its presence, all the things are sprouting on the earth. But he is not directly involved into the sprouting of any seed. I think this analogy will make it more clear about the Prakriti, Prakriter Vashat, under the influence of Maya, these things are happening, but in the Atman itself. This analogy maybe little bit, it will help us, our logic mind, to understand more clearly.
Yeah.
And then there are infinite things happening, continuously changing in the Prakriti. Same thing, infinite things are happening, sprouting, dying, sustained. So all these things are happening only and only because of the sun. But our focus is never on the sun, and we get so much caught up into the all this triad, no, that Brahma, Vishnu, Mahesh powers, and we get entangled so much, and hundreds and thousands of lifetimes we are so much engaged in that, and never look at the sun that is the cause for all this happening on the earth. So this kind of analogy may help us to clearly, quickly grasp things. That's what I feel. Jai Gurudev.
Yeah, sun is one of the Maya too, right? I mean, so it does. I mean, that example is good, but it is also all of this, the nature of the Prakriti, right? So, as you said, the power of Maya, power of Brahman as Maya has created all these things. So there is one place it said desire, but Atma doesn't have desire. And here it says, from the standpoint of Prakriti, Atma seemingly desires. Seemingly. That is why Bhagavan says, keeping Prakriti under my control. Prakritim swam avastabhya. Without his willing, purely due to Prakriti, this creation takes place. So that was that question, but yeah, thank you.
I think in one of the paras before, or I think after, he gives the example of how the dreamer
Yeah,
and
that was
the
the
dream.
previous one, right?
Yeah, in that he says the
Mm.
dreamer is like the waker, or the person who's dreaming, that is the Atma, whereas the memory is like the Prakriti, and all the dream is coming out of that memory.
Right.
So if you look at that, then maybe that connect of the Atma, Prakrit, Maya, and then how the creation happens. So the dreamer has actually nothing to do with the dream world that is being created. That is
Right.
coming out purely from the memory bank. That
So Prakritim Swam Avastabhya. That's what. So he says he's keeping the Prakriti under my own control.
he has no, because the Prakriti has no existence apart from Brahman.
Apart from Brahman, right?
That is the Swam Avashtabhya.
Right.
Prakriti is his power. He has the Prakriti under his control.
Right. And then Vishrajami Punapunaha
This
Bhuta.
So that is seemingly creating. It is, that word is very important, where if there is no creation. I mean, the whole thing again is rooted in Advaita. Advaita does not have the other.
Right. Which
There
I
is only
understand.
one.
Yeah, that was really nice. The way Vishrajami Punapunaha, which is through the Maya, creating again and again. Swam Avastabhya Vishrajami Punapunaha. Bhuta Gramam Imam
Kritsnam.
Krishnam Avasam. Avasam is necessarily, okay.
Avasham Prakriter Vashat.
Okay, by the force of Prakriti. Very nice.
And it is like a cyclical thing, no? It just goes on and on infinitely.
Yeah.
It can go on and on, this whole world, this whole universe. He's just set into motion, and it goes on and on. It's like our day. When we wake up, when we are in deep sleep, we are like in that state of bliss. The moment we wake up, we are as though creating another day. And again, when we sleep, we are as though going into pralaya. Again, kalpa happens, pralaya happens. So it is very cyclical. See, anything in nature you see, it is very cyclical. Our day night also is cyclical. The whole, when you extrapolate it to the universe, to the macrocosm, that is the Brahman, that is also cyclical. It's very, very cyclical, the whole thing.
Yeah.
But in all of this, the Purusha or the Brahman is the central part, the constant thing which does not change. Everything around him is changing, and that is because of this, his Shakti of the Shakti, that is Maya.
Yeah, Maya.
Prakriti.
So that so avasam means something that has to take place. So that's basically why did he create the world? That was the question. Then we said that by force of nature, this takes place to the Prakriti. So then he explained that through the Jnani and Anjani, example, where Jnani does things without having any attachment, he just happens for him, whereas Ajnani, it becomes kartatva, whatever thought that occurs in his mind, that he thinks that happens because of him. So that ahankara, that makes it that he is the reason responsible for it. So that's what he is an akarta in this whole thing, that he explains that way. Even though he's there. Without Bhagavan, the same philosophy. There's another one you also explained, the force of nature, that he doesn't create. They gave the example how people commit, whatever the papa punya karmas, based on that they get good life versus disadvantaged life. So like that, the birth takes place, the creation takes place again and again because of that. Like we explained about that. And then Sachit Ananda Atma, the Prakriti cannot do anything without his presence. That's a last point they made here. Okay, anybody else want to say anything? Go ahead. I will.
Jai Gurudev. One example was given of the sun. What I was thinking was that how the sun rays fall on a flowing river, and it falls on a puddle of water or a pond where the water is stagnant, and the water is in that it is all full of mud, or maybe it is smelling also, but the sun rays are equally they are illuminating that water also, and the flowing river also. So thus, though there are difference in the state of water is there, but these two entities, they don't affect the sun in any way. Whatever is happening is similar in both state. But so if we relate it to with the Atma, Satchidanand Atma, then it is like it is the nature of Atma is Satchitananda. It is not affected by any like attributes or anything, but it is how it cannot exist independently, because it needs the put of a Prakriti also. Like you need the body mind complex, and you have that body, only then will it be existing, or the Prakriti will be acting upon, like how should I explain? Like if the Atma is there, then it alone cannot create something unless it has some base upon which it can, where it can exist. So they both are dependent on each other. Though Atma is not it is not affected by the Prakriti or by the body mind complex, but just like the sun, it is showering, it is helping the Prakriti to take over and continue what the sequence of the events or the actions has to be done. Though I'm not very clear, but I was just relating it in this way.
Yeah, I think very nicely, explained, but I don't know whether we can say both are dependent on each other. Prakriti of is dependent on Atma, but Atma is independent of Prakriti.
The
Atma
sentence,
does not require, it is like the snake and the rope, no? The rope, the snake depends on the rope for its existence, whereas the rope is independent of the snake.
no, I was reading this line. The Prakriti itself cannot create. Of course, it cannot create until unless there's a put of Atma there. And Atma also cannot create by itself, because it needs something so that it can manifest.
Then it's, that's fine. So it is not the Atma by himself that is creating. It is the aspect of Atma, if you can say. I mean, the power of Atma that is there. That way, yes, probably. But otherwise, he is independent of Prakriti. So whether or not the universe is, he is. That I am. That I am. Or everything else that we attribute it, I am this, I am that, all that becomes Prakriti. Whereas just that I am will be rooted in the...
They say two ways here. He can say, I created everything, I did not create anything. So they kind of, in two ways they mention it. So that point, they basically said you have to understand that point. Sorry. I will.
It's for creation to happen, both are necessary. The Atma also and the Prakriti also. So
yeah, you can't have one without the other, right?
Yeah. So maybe like one is Satya and one is Mithya. The Atma is Satya and the Prakriti is Mithya.
Yeah,
So
one thing we have to remember constantly, that Atma is not a non-doer. It doesn't do anything. Yeah. So keeping that in mind, that we know it's not going to do this creation and all this, but then, but he's the basis for all the things that's happening in the world.
Yeah, just like the sun, it is illuminating everything. It is not the doer of what is happening, like what is happening to the state of water. One is flowing and one is stagnant. It is not answerable to that. It is just showering its light on both. So it is basically a non-doer. It has its put, but it is not connected. So it's similar way that Atma is there, but it is not connected to your Prakriti or your actions.
Yeah, that's the fact here, right? Sorry, that's noisy.
What comes to my mind right now is that just like on Earth, we are building, we are making a lot of infrastructure, concrete jungles, and we cut down trees. The sun in its glory has been shining, but the heat has increased because of us having cut down the trees. So global warming or whatever we call, it has its influence on us. Same thing, like it's like when you are going to the gym, the strength in you increases, or you are doing yoga sadhana, the strength in you increases. The strength was always there, Shakti was always there. But how much you use it to what level? And Brahman probably used it to infinity, like to its maximum potential, and therefore the entire universe. I don't know, somehow I was getting this thought process right now. Jai Guru.
In the previous sessions, we have came to know that the mithya doesn't exist without satya. So it is always something is there, no?
Yeah, he's there as a Sakshi. He's witnessing everything. We have 6 minutes more. Do you want me to go forward, or you want to say, I mean, discuss the same, review that verse 8? न च मां तानि कर्माणि निबध्नन्ति धनञ्जय उदासीनवत् आसीनम् असक्तं तेषु कर्मसु. Dhananjaya, O Arjuna, tani karmani cha, and these karmas, mam, me, udasinavat asinam, who is seated as though indifferent. Teshu karmasu asaktam, who is unconnected with reference to these karmas. Na nibadnanti, do not bind me. Dhananjaya, tani karmani cha, mam, udasinavat asinam, teshu karmasu asaktam, na nibadnanti. O Arjuna, these karmas do not bind me, who is seated as though indifferent, who is unconnected with reference to these karmas. The Lord says, with all its varieties, one superior, another inferior, one healthy, another unhealthy. This creation does not affect me because I am unconnected, asangoham. You can join Krishna here saying the same thing, asangoham. The reason that Parameshwara is not connected to all these karmas, asaktah teshu karmashu, is that he is resting as one who is absolutely indifferent. Udasinavat asinaha. This is an adjective Bhagavan uses to the word mom, me, meaning Parameshwara, to make it clear why these karmas do not bind. Again, this is an adjective Bhagavan uses to the word mom, me, meaning Parameshwara, to make it clear why these karmas do not bind. Udasina means the one who is absolutely indifferent, someone who is neither a ragi, one who likes, nor a dveshi, one who dislikes, is called udasina. He is neither a liker nor a disliker. Asina means the one who is seated. Here, Parameshwara is the one who is seated in the very Prakriti, in the very Maya Ubadi, exactly like Atma is seated in your Buddhi, being totally uninvolved in anything that goes on. The Satchit Ananda Atma, which is seated in your Buddhi, is like one who is indifferent, Udasina, because it does not choose. It does not choose good karma or bad karma, a good thought or a bad thought. Atma does not choose, it just illuminates. Therefore, it is Udasinavat Asinaha. Asakta means unconnected, without attachment. As Atma is seated in your Buddhi, here the one who is seated as the very basis of Maya, Parameshwara, also remains unconnected, devoid of attachment to the result, devoid of identification with the doership. He has no connection to the karmapala, nor does he think, I am the doer. This Atma remains absolutely indifferent because it is not subject to any change. If you want me to repeat it, I don't know, I went a little fast in here. I'll read it slowly. Again, I'll repeat this paragraph. Asakta means unconnected, without attachment. As Atma is seated in your Buddhi, here the one who is seated as the very basis of Maya, so here the one who is seated as the very basis of Maya, Parameshwara, also remains unconnected, devoid of attachment to the result, devoid of identification with the doership. He has no connection to the karmapala, nor does he think I am the doer. This Atma remains absolutely indifferent because it is not subject to any change. Whenever you see an object, there is a change in your antakarana. If it is something you like, there is a particular modification that takes place. And if it is an irritant, an entirely different type of change takes place. Now, if there is an object which causes no change at all in your antakarana, other than the vritti by which you simply perceive it, the response in the antakarana is neutral, udasina. Again, I repeat this sentence. Now, if there is an object which causes no change at all in your antakarana, other than the vritti by which you simply perceive it, the response in the antakarana is neutral, udasina. Like a perfectly neutral mind, Atma does not undergo any change and is therefore udasinavad asina. With reference to these karmas, teshu karmasu, the threefold karmas of Srishti, Sthiti, and Laya, Bhagavan says, I am not really involved. He has no sense of being a doer. It is possible for any other person also to have no sense of being a doer by knowing the same Atma. Parameshwara's Atma is Satchidananda, and the Jiva's Atma is also Satchidananda. Satchitananda. With this knowledge, there is no false identification of oneself as a doer. And again, for the Atma, there is no connection to the result of an action. Therefore, there is no sense of enjoyership for the Atma. The cause for having no connection to samsara is simply the absence of these two things, doership, kritritva, and enjoyership, bhoktritva. Both, if these are there, the whole samsara is with you. Just the thought, I am the karta and I am the bhokta, is enough to bring one into the hold of samsara. Freedom from samsara is a fact which is to be discovered. And in this, there's two more paragraphs. And in this discovery, you see that there is no kartrutva or bhoktrutva, doership or enjoyership in Atma. These sections of the Gita, where some paradoxes are presented to resolve certain other paradoxes, are very important. Bhagavan says here, I create this entire group of beings. Bhuta Gramam Imam Krishna Mistrajami. This is an expression of Krishna assuming the role of Ishvara. He says very clearly, I create Mistrajami. Then he says that those karmas of creation, sustenance, and destruction do not bind him. Tani mam na nibattanti. He himself gives the reason as to why they do not bind him. He says, I am seated within the Ubadi called Maya, like one who is absolutely neutral. Very nice. This means he denies all responsibility. He now says that he is not responsible for these three karmas of creation, sustenance, and dissolution, which are continuously taking place in the world and which are imputed to Ishvara, and therefore they do not bind him. Very nice. There seems to be a contradiction here. Generally, you cannot say, I create, and then also say, I am not responsible for this action. Well, even if you are forced to perform an action under duress, you still act. So even if you are forced to perform an action under duress, you still act. You only shift the responsibility to another person. But there is no person other than Ishvara who can induce him to perform an action and to whom he can pass the responsibility. If this is so, he has to assume responsibility for this threefold karma of Srishti, Sthiti, and Laya. But he completely washes his hands off of it. He says, I create, sustain, and dissolve this creation, and I am not affected by the results of these actions. In the next verse, Bhagavan resolved this seeming contradiction. So the whole thing we are discussing about the sun and everything else is it's still continuing to the next verse. It's so, I went a little fast, but I don't know if you guys want to do Manana on this.
Yeah, I think we can halt here and do a bit of Manana. Although we've already done some Manana, again
Do you
going
want
back
to read any page or anything in this? And I know it's pretty straightforward in this. Of course, there is some contradiction that he said he'll continue it on to verse number 10.
Yeah. I think chapter 9 begins with a lot of seeming contradictions.
Mm-hmm.
Where he
Exactly.
says, I create, but I don't create.
Yeah. In this one, basically we have to say that Brahman is the Parameshwara is there, but the Ishvara is the one who does all this creation, sustenance, and dissolution. Like that's where he says, I'm not doing anything.
Yeah. Taking a thread from what Persiji shared,
Mm,
when he talks about that Shakti within is already there. You're just going to the gym and you're kind of bringing it to manifestation when
right.
you exercise.
Mm-hmm.
Similarly, the power of creating a typhoon is there in the air. The power of creating a tsunami is actually there in the water.
Right.
That as a potential energy, it is there. When it becomes kinetic, when it manifests, it is becoming, you know, in simple terms, it's becoming the kinetic energy.
Right.
So, if you can consider Brahman as the potential energy, it is the potential to create is there in Brahman, but it is this aspect of Maya that brings about that movement, that kinetic energy, that creation, that Srishti happens because of this aspect of Maya, which is
Right.
embedded in him. It is embedded in him. It has no existence apart from him. Therefore, it is totally dependent on Brahman. But
Yeah.
this potential energy can exist without the kinetic energy. He is full and total. He does not require the kinetic energy for his existence.
Right. Like you explained, like Brahma, Shreya, Maya. So same.
Maya
Yeah. Without him, the Maya doesn't exist. So
doesn't
that's his
exist.
power. Yeah. So basically,
Right.
like that's a good example. Yes.
And I was also thinking when we are looking at all of this, so many doubts coming up, questions coming up. What
Mm-hmm.
Gurudev says is the whole journey is from an ugly I don't know to a very beautiful I don't know. Where,
Mm-hmm.
you reach that state where how do you explain? How is this Maya having this will? How is this Maya dependent on Brahma? What is this Maya? So that probably takes you to that beautiful I don't know, which is
Mm-hmm.
coming out of maybe wonder. Initially, the question is coming from curiosity, from wanting to know why. But that why completely turns into wonder, and you say, I don't know. But that is how it is.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I just thought I would share this.
Yeah.
Because in our
The
mind,
sun.
the logical mind
Example.
always wants definite answers like, 2 plus 2 equals 4. That is it. But here in Vedanta, 1 plus 1 equals 1. It is not 2. So
Yeah.
how does it happen is there is that conflict happening in that thinking mind. We
Right.
want to see everything. We want to understand everything. But there is
Yeah.
a point which goes beyond our understanding. I think there you just have to recognize that.
Right. Like where I feel this example, like where Atma, like Brahman, illumines us, like the beings, the Bhutas. The sun illumines all the things when it comes up. All the things in the world. So it's similar, like it's like it's there and watching over all the things that's happening, but it doesn't do anything. That's um, that's basically what I explained in this one in terms of Brahman. But then his power, of course, there's the potential for the potential energy you can call, or he has all that things to wield. Yeah.
this is one more way of my thought process is like this, that though we say Adi Daivik and Adi Bhautik, it is our karmas which are leading towards cyclones or tsunamis happening, floods happen, because we are displacing the water and building towers in the sea. So much of reclamation of the waters. Where will that water go? It will go into another part of the world as a flood. So when they say that Atma or Paramatma is not responsible, it is our karmas, somewhere it was mentioned here, I connected it with this Adi Daivik and Adi Bhautik also. That God is not punishing us or anything like that. It is our karmas which are coming back to us. So though we call it Adi Daivik and Adi Bhautik, it is Adi Bhautik only. We people are only creating this mess with nature. And then nature is striking back in its full fury. So our karmas are responsible for this.
True. Yeah, there is one place where he said, I am seated within the Upadhi called Maya, like one who is absolutely neutral. Same example that was given, like he is, seated in Maya.
Example given, it is like I've been to Sikkim last week, so I saw that there are so many tunnels being made and a lot of landslides are happening. So we were just wondering like how the government is, I don't know what the plan of government is, but how the nature is being disturbed. They are exploding it with the dynamites, and rather than improving the roads and making them more stable and even, they are focusing on making tunnels. I don't know what is the reason behind it, but so many landslides were happening there. And it was very sad to see that what makes them think in this way, that they play with the nature and then they cause the devastation happening. Mainly the lower people, their lower socioeconomic group, they suffer. Like in Uttarakhand, it happened recently. So it's happening all over these mountains. It was very sad to see, like how they're exploding the mountains and making the long tunnels, and they should have worked upon the roads. The roads are still in a bad state, but they are making tunnels.
See, our art of living under Vyakti Vikas Kendra, India, we are asking the government for a project. All these express highways have come up. Lots of trees have been taken out, and the contractors are fined 20% if they are not replanting the trees or planting new trees. Now, the contractors don't mind paying the 20% fine, but they are not planting trees, which is leading to a lot of heat being generated in India now. Our temperatures are touching 40 degrees. So we have said, if that 20% you give to us, we will plant the trees and we can do it within 10%. The 10% will go for other projects like our Jal Tara and all that. So we have approached the government for this. Contractors are not bothered. They are making the expressways. Government is taking the 20% fine. It is organizations like ours who are working for the Prakriti, the natural surroundings. Very good.
That is again getting into samsara. Here is saying all of this is no doubt, I'm not belittling it at all, but the whole shift is to say that all that is happening in Prakriti is Prakriter Vashat. Avasham Prakriter Vashat. All that is happening. And it is a complex interplay of dharma, dharma, papa, punya, the karmas of different people intertwining. So all that is happening on one side, whereas Brahman or Atma is like the silent witness. And our journey is to move to that silent space, that witness consciousness, and take everything. That is why when Dr. Savita was talking about the free will yesterday, today it is clear. I'm not sure whether we're able to relate to that, Dr. Savita, when there is a contrast between the Ajnani and the Jnani. The Jnani, he lives a choiceless life. When you are faced with a choice and you can do, don't do it differently, then you're exercising your free will. Whereas a Jnani, he just lives, he is, everything is happening according to Prakriti for him. He does not take up doership. So that free will aspect, I think only when you have that karta bhav, that free will also comes up. Because he thinks, I am doing it. No, but whereas for a Jnani, he says, I don't. It just happens. Everything is just happening. If we have any more to share, let's continue. Otherwise, yesterday we did not have time for chapter 6. Nana is coming on Friday. So I just wanted to confirm that he will be there with us.
Will be Thursday night for me, right?
Correct. It will be Thursday night for you.
Brahmaraji, Jai Gurudev, if you want my sharing screen, I can continue if you have, if it is difficult for you.
No, I have, I've opened chapter 6, Bela.
Okay, okay.
Yeah, probably I missed one day. So you are doing the Asamchayam or you moved on?
This is what Krishna is saying. Bhagavan starts. Asamshayam Mahaba. I think this we finished. 35, verse 35 is over. Shri Bhagavanuvacha Asamshayam Mahabaho Manodurnigraham Chalam Abhyasena tu Kaunteya Vairagyena cha Grihyate. No, we're doing this verse. We didn't complete this. So Bhagavan says, no doubt, O mighty armed Arjuna, the agitated mind is very difficult to control. But, O son of Kunti, by practice and objectivity, it is mastered. So he goes on to say, acceptance is the first step. Rather than fighting the agitation in the mind, accept that the mind is agitation. And then he goes on to say, the mind is the way it is. Otherwise, we will not, it cannot function without it being chanchala. It cannot be constant. It has to keep changing. It is also kshanika. That is why it is called kshanika. Because it keeps changing. Should I read this? I think I will read this one paragraph. Since the nature of the mind is kshanika, naturally it is going to change. Therefore, there is no doubt about it, Arjuna. The mind is, let me read one more paragraph before that. The mind must necessarily change. Just as in a movie, the frame must always be changing at a certain speed for you to be able to see objects, movement, etc. Here too, the mind has to keep changing all the time so that you can see. This is why the mind is called kshanika. One particular thought is always kshanika, meaning that it does not even last for a second. Just to say the word second involves so many parts, so many frames, so many changes, all of which are kshanika. This is the nature of the vritti, the thought. Even to recognize this fact, the mind has to be kshanika. Since the nature of the mind is kshanika, naturally it is going to change. Therefore, Krishna says there is no doubt about it, Arjuna. The mind is chala, chanchala, restless. The word chala also means agitation. And being chala, it is very difficult to control. Manah durnigraham chalam, he said. In other words, he agrees with what Arjuna has said about the mind, that it is as difficult to have mastery over the mind as over the wind. By repeating what Arjuna has said, he is saying that the nature of the mind should be accepted as such. Accept the fact that the mind is agitation, that it has its own roots, that it has its own logic, and that therefore it is never illogical. We always think the mind is illogical, but that is not correct. The mind does have its own logic. If we suddenly think of something, we think that the thought has come from nowhere. But it has not come from nowhere. It has come from somewhere, meaning there is some logic for it. But why, when nothing has happened outside, when everything is calm, do I suddenly have this thought? This simply means that outside situations are not required for a thought to occur. We have enough going on inside for this to happen. Why, for example, in the midst of meditation, do I suddenly think of okras? And why, when I'm talking and wanting to come up with some funny word, did this word okra come to me? There must be some logic for it. The point here is that whatever suddenly occurs in your head has its own logic. There is nothing illogical in the world. There is nothing illogical in this world. There is always some logic. Originally, of course, everything is illogical. But then afterwards, it is all logical. Within the illogical, we find there is a logic. That is, we understand that when something occurs, there is some reason for it. We must understand then that the mind is like this. This is its nature. Does this mean that I should leave the mind as it is? We could say, yes, the mind is agitation. Forget about it. Do not worry about it. The problem, however, is that when the mind is agitation, I am agitation. Therefore, we have to learn to discover the distance between the mind and I. This is the whole trick here, which is why Krishna tells Arjuna that the mind can be mastered by practice and objectivity. Abhyasena tu kaunteya vairagyena cha grihyate. So I will just read this again here. So there is nothing illogical in this world. There is always some logic. Originally, of course, everything is illogical. So here, this originally everything being illogical is that everything is just a superimposition. Everything is mithya. But within that mithya, there is a lot of logic. This papa, punya, dharma, dharma, all that is very logical. Within the illogical, we find there is a logic. That is, we understand that when something occurs, there is some reason for it. So if we are going through some difficult patch, there is a reason for that. If there is a thought just coming into our mind, there is a reason for that. So there is a logic behind everything that happens in this world, although originally everything is illogical. So does this mean that I should leave the mind as it is? we could say, yes, the mind is agitation. Forget about it. Do not worry about it. The problem, however, is that when the mind is agitation, I am agitation. This is the problem because we identify ourselves with the mind. So we don't leave that the mind is agitation, let it be. The identity that we have with the mind, we also become agitated. Therefore, we have to learn to discover the distance between the mind and I. This is such a beautiful statement. We have to learn to discover the distance between the mind and I. This
Yeah,
is
that
the
one,
picture.
I was chanting the 1 second.
Yeah.
The this the vibhutis of Paramatma, right? In this, he says the Manas, I am the Manas, like not he doesn't say I am the Manas, but of the senses, he likes the Manas. He is the Manas. So I'm thinking, oh, if he is the Manas, then we are supposed to have the Manas so clear, I mean, you have to keep it so, uh, what do you call it? Clean mind. So that's what came to my head. But then I'm just wondering, when you're talking about agitation, all this sadness, angry, all the other things, that is due to our own problems, right? Our own thoughts that was created in the mind.
See, all this is making sense, no? When we contrast the Rajavidya Rajaguhya Yoga, where we're talking about creation and everything, and here we're down to, he's talking in chapter 6, he's talking about how to handle the mind, how to get the mind. He's talking about distancing ourselves from the mind. Abhyasena tu kaunteya vairagyena cha krityate. So on one side, he's talking of creation and nothing. He is apart from creation. And here he is like getting into the brass tacks of what is happening in the psychology of the mind. That only Bhagwan can do. That skill of giving us
Yeah,
such.
he said the manas and the intelligence. So it's all like that's a glory of the.
Really, Yoga
Yeah.
Maishwaram, no, that's his glory, really.
Mhm. So it was so, like when you think about it, oh my God, it's not just only Atma, it's all the other things also have
Ah.
impact. Yeah.
And how he teases out everything little by little, layer by layer. And then this is the
Yeah.
truth.
Mm-hmm.
So caring for the child within. By addressing Arjuna here as Kaunteya, meaning the son of Kunti, Krishna is indicating that the child was still there in Arjuna, which is where the mind has its own roots. This child has to be taken care of by the person. Therefore, there is double child care. When you were a child, someone else took care of you. And now you have to take care of your inner child. The first child care is done by one's parents or certain other adults, whereas this child care must be done by the person. Everyone nurses a child inside, and that child has to be taken care of. Everyone has to do it. There is always a child who was disappointed in his or her perceptions. My mother does not like me. My father hates me. These were the child's perceptions. And because of the behavior of the people involved, they have some validity. This is why the child remains inside the person. There is always a crying child, a weeping child down below, which is why the mind suddenly takes off, especially when you reach the age of 35 years and over. This is the time that all the disappointments of the child come out one by one. And if you begin to study Vedanta, they all come out. Studying Vedanta means that you look at yourself. Previously, you were doing other things. Looking at yourself is the first thing that must be done here, which is when the child comes out. When else will this child be taken care of? It has to be taken care of. It has to be addressed. Otherwise, you become 75 years old and are still a child. This then is the point Krishna is making here by calling Arjuna as Kaunteya. First, he refers to Arjuna as an adult, Mahabaho, and then asks him to take care of the child by addressing him as Kaunteya. I will just read this one para. Krishna then tells Arjuna how this is to be done, saying that by practice and objectivity, the mind can be mastered. Abhyasena vairagena cha grihyate. And what is this practice, abhyasa? The practice is the practice of yoga, just discussed by Krishna, through a certain distance, through which a certain distance is gained between your mind and yourself. This distance enables you to look at yourself positively, to see yourself exactly as you are, to see the nature of I, to see what the nature of I is. In this way, you come to understand that every thought is you, no doubt, but that you are free from thought. Seeing this particular fact more and more, seeing it inside very clearly, is what is meant by abhyasa, practice. Seeing this particular situation, thought being I, while I is not any thought, is what is called nididhyasana. And doing the same thing again and again is called abhyasa, which enables you to gain mastery over your mind. Abhyasena grihyate. Seeing this particular situation, that is, thought being I, while I is not any thought, is what is called nididhyasana. And doing the same thing again and again is called abhyasa, which enables you to gain mastery over your mind. Very profound. We'll stop here. I know we've gone beyond the time, but if anybody wants to share a one-liner, some profound takeaway, please go ahead. So this abhyasa is to create a distance between the mind and I. And to take care of
Here the distance between the, what did you say, I and?
the mind and I.
Right. So the how when you say I is this Atma, that how we sense the Atma between the thoughts.
Yes, that is
Okay.
it.
Okay. So the thought arises in the mind. Every vritti is between two thoughts. You can recognize that silence. That basically that is the only thing you can think of, right?
Yes.
Okay, thanks.
And we have double child care. One child care is when we were young, parents took care of us. The second child care, it is everybody's responsibility. Individually, only you can do it. Only that individual can take care of this child. And that is the whole sadhana, the whole effort required is in taking care of that child. Because only you and I know what kashaya is there inside. No? The
That's
outside
true.
world doesn't
Yeah.
know. Only we know. Only you know what is your thought process.
Mm-hmm.
And when we start the journey of Vedanta, this becomes even more evident. All that
Brings
kasha.
out everything. Yeah. Yeah, that sentence was kind of, nice, like how Vedanta brings everything out.
Right.
Yeah.
Because you
So,
start looking within, isn't it? Till now, you're so occupied by looking outside that there was not even time for you to look within. But the moment you're exposed to this knowledge, to Vedanta, to these techniques, then you start looking within and then you realize, oh my gosh, there is so much in there, which is what is creating all those thoughts, actions, deeds. Therefore, that logic, there is some deep-rooted perceptions, impressions, which is why we behave the way we behave. We say what we say. Why Duryodhana was like that, why Krishna was like that. So there is a reason for that. So this bringing up that looking within is Vedanta, and that looking within and taking care of that child. Kaunteya, what a lovely interpretation of Kaunteya.
Hmm.
So we have to take care of the Kaunteya within ourselves, the child.
That when we say the child, even though like when you become however old you are that same person, like you might have been changed a little in
Yeah,
mind and body, but some of the basic things not change, right?
that is the whole maturity, no?
Yeah, that you have to understand what is that, so who
Yeah.
you are. Like now you can say, who am I, right?
Correct.
That's really funny. Yeah, gosh. Yeah, it's obviously brings to you to that question, who am I? Like, nice.
Nice. So on that thought, we'll close today's session. Om Loka Samasta Sukhino Bhavantu. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Tat Sat Shri Krishna Arpanamastu. Jai Gurudev.
Jai Gurudev. Dhanyavad.
Thank you.